One. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Sports Dadcast. I am your host, Bo Bingen. Brandon Curtis is back. We're going to talk some NBA. Brandon, thanks for being back with me, man.
Yeah, I love being back. Love enjoying talking the sports and especially talking some hoops.
Let's do it, man. All right, so the NBA is kind of coming to a close here. Each team has somewhere between 20 and 25 games left, kind of closer to the 20 side. But yeah, we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. It's kind of that end of the season sprint before we start the playoffs. So what we're going to do today is kind of just break down some storylines that we can see, kind of playing out what we want to kind of see happen, what we think might turn out for the rest of the season, and we'll talk some playoff stuff towards the end here as well. So the first thing, does KD make the Suns finals favorites for you in the West, even though Durant is hurt right now?
I've always been a big Durant guy, and so it's one of those things where I think right now that he all of a sudden got hurt, it and now it's like, when are they going to find time to gel?
Yeah.
And now if he misses the first playoff series, or even just he's already going to miss the rest of March, already the last 5-6 games of April.
Yep.
It not looking ideal for them. And I mean, they've been there before. That's the one thing they got on their side.
Yeah.
But their depth is not as, I'm trying to think of the words, like as good or as experienced as it once was. And
Right.
so I don't know if they can get there without him.
Yeah.
And so
they're sitting right now, they're sitting in the 4 seed. They're 8.5 back of Denver, and they're 2.5 back of the Grizzlies and the Kings, who are tied for second and third. So they've got a 2-game lead on the Clippers, who are sitting in the 5th seed. So it seems like they might be kind of locked into that 4 seed. I don't see them jumping up above Memphis or the Kings. I don't think they make up that gap. That seems like a little bit too much to ask with the number of games remaining. But I don't see, with the Clippers and Golden State right behind them, I think they probably end up as that 4 seed, which means they probably end up in the 4-5 matchup is what they would end up with, which the 5 seed could be anybody. And we'll kind of get into this too, how close it is going from the 5 seed down, I mean, another 8 teams. So the matchup is to be determined. If it were right now, if the playoffs ended today, it would be Suns Clippers. How do you feel about that potential matchup?
Suns Clippers would be absolutely fantastic to watch, but I think they're gonna need Durant to hold off Kawhi. Kawhi is, if he, when Kawhi's healthy, you know what you're gonna get from him. You're gonna get that almost 30 a night kind of guy. And then if Paul George has a series where he's on, they're tough. And Russ seems to like he's fitting in better than he has with other teams. I'm happy for him. He doesn't deserve the ridicule. He's one of those guys where I think his shooting ability, yes, lacks, but his effort, the things that he was doing for the Lakers early on in the season, it's like you can't blame him for their downfall in the beginning. Davis doesn't play every day.
Right.
LeBron wasn't healthy playing every day. It's one of those things where, I don't know, I think he gets a bad rap. I don't know. He's still one of the most generational talented players we've seen. Yeah. And he's going to go down as one of the best point guards to ever play the game. It is. I get where the frustrations and I get where the memes come from and stuff for him, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that you kind of have to play in the middle of games. You don't really want him out there in crunch time. But I think you're right. I think that would be a lot of fun to watch that matchup between the Suns and the Clippers. But as far as Durant goes, he's one of those guys where he kind of comes back and he fits right in. And he's a guy that can kind of plug and play with any team, it seems like, because he's just a hooper, man. Yeah. And he kind of just gels. But that the chemistry is a big thing. Being that the playoffs are so long, I'm not too worried about it. The biggest thing that I have with the Suns is, can Chris Paul stay on the court for 4 playoff series potentially, because he's struggled doing it in the past. So that's what I worry about with the Suns. I'm not real worried about Durant. It might take him a couple of games to get back in the swing, but what we've seen with Durant is he comes back from major injuries and he fits right in. He gets right back to where he was going. So if he can stay healthy, I think the Suns have a good chance to make it to the finals.
Right. I agree. I'll piggyback off that. I do think they're still the favorite, because I'm looking at the odds right now on DraftKings and they're plus 230 even with him being hurt. And that's so I mean, it is. I think the Clippers would be a terrible first round matchup without
Agreed.
Durant. But even if they get the Warriors too, that's another terrible first round matchup. But I think if they were to get like if they could maybe slip a little bit, even that'd be if I'm them, I'm trying to play either the Grizzlies or the Kings or like one of those
Oh, okay.
because you can live without Durant in that moment and you can
Sure.
still beat them because you had the playoff experience to beat those teams. Because, like, I don't know, like I said, ever since Jaws made those comments for the Grizz, I mean, we'll probably address it here soon.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's
I'm
a
not
really good segue. Let's jump into the Grizzlies since
sure.
you brought him up. What do you think of Morant and what's kind of taking place, and what do you see from them going forward towards the end of the season here?
I'm so shocked by it. Like at first, I didn't really understand or want to believe like the things.
Yeah,
Just things just kept like segueing. Like it's like, what are you doing?
yeah,
And I've seen a lot of things like they don't have a true veteran locker room presence there. The ones that have been there, they haven't gotten to play,
right.
and they're like, "Well, I don't want to be here now." Like they don't want me.
Yeah,
And so I just don't know what the deal is with him. And I hope he does get the help he needs. He's a phenomenal player. He's a
absolutely.
player that we absolutely need to stay in this league because he's fun as hell.
Yes.
And he's bouncy. As soon as he figures out that jump shot more and
Hmm.
more, it gets more comfortable with different styles of play. He'll be so fun because they're a fun team to watch. And
Absolutely.
you want them, and they got that villain with Dylan Brooks, and he needs to definitely get the microphone out of his mouth a little bit, but he's trying to take that Draymond role kind of role thing,
Yeah.
which so be it. You got to have someone do it on your team, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like I said, if he gets back and can get into a groove, they're still going to be a challenge. It's just they're kind of losing bigs left and right now.
Yeah.
This is out for a while again.
Hmm.
Uh, Brandon Clark just tore his Achilles.
Yeah.
Not looking great depth wise.
Yeah.
So if I'm the Suns, I want to play them. And yeah,
I think that's a fair point because the Grizzlies, as athletic as they are and as young as they are, I think you make a great point that they just don't have, it seems like they don't have an adult in the room to kind of lead them as a squad. And you could point to Steven Adams, but Steven Adams hasn't been on the court. He hasn't been out there. So it seems like it's a bunch of kids trying to play pickup and they're young and they're athletic and they're cocky and they kind of act like they've done it, but they haven't. So
right.
I don't really have a lot to expect from the Grizzlies. I think they put up a fight. Right now, they're tied with Sacramento for the 2 seed in the West. I don't see them staying there. I bet you they end up with the 3 seed. I don't think they fall, like we said, fall far enough for the Suns to pass them, but I would expect them to land as the 3 seed. But I don't. I think they're a team that could get upset in the first round just because they don't have the guys to lead them. And I don't, you brought up Dylan Brooks. I don't have anything for Dylan Brooks. If
Yeah.
you I think he's a dirty player. I
Oh
think he
yeah.
deliberately tries to injure guys, and I don't have any respect for people that play that way. As
Correct.
even as good, I mean, even as athletic and as great a defender that he is, I can't have any respect for you when you
He
play that way.
he's trying to be a bully, and it's like,
Right.
dude,
Yeah.
you're 23 years old, 25 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
Just stop. Like you're really trying to hurt dudes. Like that's why he got kicked out of the one game, and
Yeah.
Gary Payton Jr. couldn't play the rest of the playoffs last year after that injury.
Right.
Like he's a scumbag. They kind of all are. Like they're all getting to that point where it's like, why are you doing this? Like,
Yeah.
so there is, like you said, no father figure, no big. I should say there's no Steven Adams is a veteran and he's been there before, but like he uses his voice in different ways, like on the court. I don't think he uses his voice in the locker room
Right.
because he
Which is
doesn't
where they
want
need it.
us doesn't step on. So they don't have that guy like I guess like a Udonis Haslam. Like I know he doesn't.
Yeah.
He's a relevant player for the last 10 years, but he's not a guy that stuck around for years and
Right.
just hung out in the locker room to be a guy.
Yeah.
But like the thing that's frustrating too is like you sit there and I think Stephen A said it the other day for Ja, like to piggyback back to Ja, like you're as a father, what do you do? Like as Ja's father, who's on the court side at almost every
Yeah.
game, like what are you doing? Like why are you letting your son? Your son's not your boy. He's your son.
Yeah.
But you have to make sure he's right because
Yes.
he's the money maker. You are not making any money. Like
Right.
your son is making you all the money.
Yeah.
So, like, I liked what Stephen A said the other day, which I tend to have those moments with Stephen A where it's like, okay, is he saying this
Yep.
stuff to be real? But like, he's talking it to be real now.
Yeah.
And so I think they need him to be back to be successful. And
Yep.
I guess you can reevaluate them from there.
Yeah. I mean, I think Ja is only 22, 23 years old. So yes, is he entitled to make some mistakes? Yes. He's got a lot of pressure. He's got a lot of money. He's got a lot riding on him. He's as the face of that organization. But all the more reason to get the assistance that you need to just help you make decisions, man. I mean, just think about, okay, is it is it a good decision to be in a nightclub on Instagram Live with a weapon, with a gun? Probably not a great decision. So let's evaluate what we're doing, maybe evaluate who you have around you and who's helping you make those decisions or putting you in positions to make those poor decisions. And I think he ends up getting right. And it's gonna take a little bit of time. You know, that doesn't happen overnight. But I think they eventually get back to a point where Ja's in a good place. He's leading that team. And when they're out there, that team is dynamic offensively because they're young and they are wicked athletic. So I think they have a good future. It's just going to take some time, and it probably isn't this year. I just don't see him getting to the finals this year. But
Great.
piggybacking off of Ja, let's flip over to another guy that was in his draft and talk a little bit about Zion Williamson. Now, the Pelicans aren't in the playoffs currently. They're sitting a half game out of the 10 seed. But I want to talk about Zion and I want to put up a panic meter and I want to get your reading on it. Where are you with Zion and what's your level on the panic meter?
Out of the, I guess out of like, is it like 1 through 10 panic
Yeah,
meter?
give me a 1 to 10, 10 being I'm nervous he's a bust.
You know, when he's out there, he's just so good. And
Yeah.
so at the end of the day, I'm not worried about his production. It's the availability, like you said.
Hmm.
And you know, the best ability is being available. And I guess I get to that point of you're getting above a 5. Like I
Yep.
think you're over halfway now. Like I'd say 6, maybe 7.
Yep.
I think it's time to you got to change your body. Like what you're doing to your body at 22 years old,
Right.
whatever you're doing is clearly not working. So, you know, I think it's time to figure it out where you gotta shed some pounds so that you can still be your guy. Cause like muscle tissues, it's all about pressure and like
Hmm.
the amount of force that is put on them. And he's putting so much force on those things that it's like,
Yeah,
is that what's keeping him out or what's going on? And them not being competitive with the roster they have is so frustrating
I'm
because
with
he
you.
shouldn't be the only one out there being to carry them to. They got Valanciunas hasn't been out there, I don't think, for a while. I'm actually going to click on them right now and see how many games he's played because he's been hurt for a while. I know that.
Yeah.
But Ingram, it's like we're sitting here watching Brandon Ingram not do stuff, and
CJ.
and CJ, like
Yeah.
I love CJ. He's a great guy. I love listening to his stuff. Like when he's on a podcast, I'm listening to it because he's
Yeah.
a smart guy. But they go through a hot and cold stretch. Like in January, they lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games in a row.
Yeah.
They're going through stretches where they just can't
It's
win
rough.
basketball games. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, Ingram and McCollum are the only ones healthy right now. And
Yeah.
just, you can't have it.
And in the West, that with so much talent in the West, I think it's really tough when you're missing guys, and Zion being the big one. So okay, let's look back. In Zion's 3 seasons, he's played a total of 24 games, 61 games, which is reasonable,
Yeah.
and then 29 games this year. So I mean, it's just not. I think I'm with you. I'm at probably a 7.5 with Zion. I'm really worried. I'm worried, and I think it goes back to when he was playing at Duke and he blew out his shoe. You remember when that happened? So I don't think I've ever seen that before, and it just put on display how much torque this guy is really playing with. He's a massive dude, and he's wicked strong, and you can see that when he plays. But when you do that, you put, like you said, so much pressure on your body, and specifically your knees and your ankles and those ligaments and tendons, and they're holding everything together. It makes sense that he struggles to stay healthy, But then it becomes a problem when you can't play, and it's showing with the Pelicans and how poorly they've played down the stretch this year. They were in a really good stretch. I think they started out the season really well. The first 20, 30 games, I think they were in a really good position in the Western Conference. And then, like you said, it just fell apart. Everything has come crashing down, and I don't see them making the playoffs this year. And I bet you we don't see Zion the rest of the season. So I'm up there with you. I think 7.5 is a problem. And if you had to make a choice right now, do you think the Pelicans made the wrong choice taking Zion? Do you think they should have taken Ja? I know we just talked about Ja, and Ja's got his own issues, but
Yeah.
what do you think about that question?
Man, I don't know if it's taking Ja or taking Zion or God, who else? Who was the third pick in that class? I'm just missing it out of
I
draft.
think was it RJ Barrett?
RJ Barrett, like, yeah,
I think
you
that
know,
was.
and he's made some strides this year
He's
for
been better.
the
Yeah, he's
Knicks,
improved.
but I still think you got to take Zion for the upside. I know it's tough with
Yeah, that's fair.
the jaw stuff, but I don't know if a point guard really. I guess a point guard would probably be better for Brandon Ingram, and maybe Ingram would be in that discussion to be a top 15 player in the league.
Right.
But I'm just not sure.
Yeah. If I had asked you that question 2 weeks ago before all this Ja stuff, I think you get a different answer.
I
But
probably
now that Ja's got his own issues off the court, it makes it really tough.
Yeah, I mean, because you're looking at that draft class, and it seemed that draft class, the real only guys to stick are Zion, Ja, RJ, DeAndre Hunter, but like he's not that. He's just a
Yeah,
wing
sure.
depth guy.
Right.
Darius Garland can't stay healthy. Culver isn't even in the league.
Right.
Kobe White is backup guard now for the Bulls. Jackson. I mean, the thing that they messed up on here, the Pelicans, is drafting Jackson Hayes at 8.
Yeah.
When they already had the I don't know if they made the Valanciunas trade at that time. I think they had Steven Adams. I don't remember, but like getting a guy like, I guess, Cam Johnson or Tyler Hero, or that would have probably helped. And then they drafted Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think it comes down to them drafting terrible players in the last how many picks? All the picks they got from the Lakers. I think I just saw this the other day. I don't remember where I saw it. The picks they got from the Lakers for AD, they have missed on every one of them.
Yeah, they haven't done well with it.
Like, and it's like, what? Like, and David Griffin is a smart GM too, or I thought was a smart GM. You know, he was a coveted guy. Like, he was.
Well, yeah, he wasn't unemployed long.
Yeah, no, he wasn't unemployed. I mean, like, he lost the job with the Cavs or whatever. That was because LeBron's saga went down, and you know, you're gonna leave. Right. But like, yeah, you're just missing on dudes left and right. You just can't. Like, you look at it for every sport, like especially the NFL and NBA. When you're in your window and you think you're in that window, and you miss on one guy,
it can set you back.
It sets you back, and they've missed on every one of their guys. And Zion not being healthy is number one, so that obviously hurts. But missing on guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Jackson Hayes. And Jackson Hayes is hit or miss. He's been better.
Yeah.
But then missing on dudes as well after that. And it just hurts.
And it's been a really disappointing season after they ended the year so well last year and really gave the Suns a run for their money in that playoff series once they got past the play-in. I mean, they took that series to six games and gave the Suns all they could handle. And this year, it's just been such a flop in the second half of the season.
Yeah, and I think that's a stem. Yeah, it's starting to, maybe the Zion health problem is finally starting to take over, or it's like I said, missing picks and missing Zion. So
all right, let's transition back to the top. We're going to stay in the Western Conference, but we're going to jump back up because I really want to talk about the Kings. The Kings are sitting currently in second place in the Western Conference. You could have given me 10 teams to pick from in the Western Conference before the season started to finish number 2 or 3, and I would not have picked the Kings. I certainly would not have made that choice. But do you think the Kings won the Halliburton Sabonis trade?
Right now, like, it's like, you know, you sit there and you look at it and you're like, I really like Tyrese, and it's like Kings were a little odd for moving on from him, but I think right now, you know, it's panning out. They're fun to watch. Like I said,
they are.
They finally hired a good coach. Like I said on the last one,
Yeah.
They finally hired a guy that's had some success before he left Cleveland, got fired, whatever. And then, he didn't become a head coach again until now. That was his like big thing. Like he did not become a head coach. He sat behind Kerr forever
Yeah.
in Golden State. And he like turned down jobs to stay behind Kerr. And like that shows something of a guy that's truly trying to learn and they want to be in the right situation. And I think Fox has really stepped up and, which is obvious, but Sabonis, I think that trade is showing to itself that it was very, very even. It wasn't like the Kings
Absolutely.
got fleeced.
Yeah.
It was tough. Sabonis was looking like a guy that you knew what you were going to get from him, but you knew he couldn't play defense.
Yeah.
Now he seems like he's figuring out a way to play some defense a little bit, or they're keeping him on the floor some way, somehow.
Right. So we're talking about Mike Brown as the coach of the Kings, and I think you're absolutely right. I think he's got a shot at winning Coach of the Year. I really do, with this roster. Now, the problem that they have is that they don't play any defense. The Kings right now, they are first in the NBA in points per game, 121.2 points per game, but they are 27th out of 30 on defense, 118.3 points per game allowed. So I think you're flirting with it, but I'm with you in that they probably did a good job in that trade. They really did. And they got the right guy that did what they needed to do for that roster, because moving out Halliburton, as good as he is and as amazing as he's going to be for a long time, moving him out and kind of letting Fox run the show with Sabonis kind of to play off of him has done exactly what they needed to boost that team, at least offensively. They need help defensively, absolutely. But from an offensive perspective, they're as difficult to handle as any team in the NBA.
Correct. I remember I went back and looked at the recent games and they had that game with the Clippers that went to overtime.
Yes.
It was like 176.
Oh my gosh.
Like, how do you gotta stop somebody,
Yeah.
right?
Stop ball. Somebody stop ball.
Yeah. But like they got a couple guys that you look at their roster and you're like, really the only one that's good at defense is Davion Mitchell. And Fox is all right defender, not great, but
Yeah.
Barnes is slow and old. Herter is, he's not,
He's a shooter. That's it.
He's a shooter, he's not a 3-and-D guy, but
No.
And Malik Monk, that man doesn't play any defense either. So, are they a true threat? Yeah, but they can score the ball. So
Yeah.
if you can't stop a pick and roll, you're done. So
yeah. It's going to be really interesting to see if they do finish in that 2 seed and then who they eventually do get matched up with, because I think that's another team along with Memphis that could get beat in the first round. Like when the game flips and you get to playoff basketball, we know how different it can be than the regular season. You have to be able to get stops. And if you can't, you will get beat. It's that plain and simple. So I like the Kings a lot. You're right. They can score the basketball, but I don't see them making a big playoff push. What do you think?
They're in a nightmare situation, I think, because you get the 2 seed, you get to play the best bubble play-in team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the bubble play-in team is going to be the Lakers or Dallas, and it's like, and maybe Dallas figures it out in the next week or couple weeks, but man, that is an awful matchup because you get into a series and you got to play Luka and Kyrie, and they also got some guys too that are those two are going to be touching the ball the whole time, but it's Luka. You don't want to face him, and then it's LeBron. No matter how healthy or how old he is, it's still somebody I don't want to see in the first round.
I'm absolutely with you. So if let's say we get Dallas Sacramento matchup in the first round, can we just adjust the rules and just play first to 150 and just call it good from there? It doesn't matter what the defense is. We'll just play first to 150 and go from there. So I think we should make a quick rule adjustment that if we do get the matchup in the playoffs in the first round between the Kings and the Mavs, that we just play first to 150 and just play like pickup style. Forget
Yeah,
about defense. Let's just see who can score the most points the quickest.
yeah, that'd be a little bit more fun for that series. I think a team that I guess you go ahead with the next headline. I don't know if we have another one. I think that would be fun though. So
Yeah. So, and since we're talking a little bit of play-in, I want to talk about the Lakers, and I want to gauge where you're feeling with the Lakers. So, what right now they're sitting in the ninth seed. They're 12 and a half back. So they're 4.5 back of the Suns, but so 4 games back of the Suns, 2 games back of the Clippers. So they're 2 games back of the 5 seed. So I think that's a little bit too much to ask, but they could still make their way out of the play-in. What do you think we end up seeing from the Lakers?
man, I got a couple. Like I said, I got a couple LeBron stands that I know, and it's like I've I want to say they make it. I think they'll probably stick a play-in team just because you need Anthony Davis to suit up, and
Yeah,
the man's got so many nicknames on the street. It's so funny, like Street Clothes Davis and
yo,
Day to Day Davis, and it's one of those things where they need him to play and they need him to be Anthony Davis. So lately he has been Anthony Davis. So it's fun to watch again where, maybe he never truly needed to go to LA. I think he just wanted to go get that ring
yep,
because we know how great he is.
absolutely.
But when he's not, it's like your best availability is, your best ability is being available. And
Yep, that's
you
where he
know,
struggles.
and that's where he struggles. And so him being hurt with LeBron in years past has just been brutal for them. And
Yeah,
now it's like they made those couple trades at the deadline that were like, all right, okay, like those are guys that want to play,
yeah,
and you put them out on the floor. They did just lose Mo Bamba for about 3 to 4 weeks, so that does hurt a little bit, but they got a haul for trading Russ and Thomas Bryant and dudes that were, eating the bench, eating the
right.
wood.
Yeah,
I mean, they got D'Angelo Russell, who is now, I think, motivated more because unfortunately he's just kind of had a tough. And I think his time in Minnesota was running low, anyways,
I'm
because
with
they're
you.
not playing well.
Right.
Not, they're in the play-in right now, but they were not playing well when he was there. Malik Beasley and Jared Vanderbilt are two dudes that are gonna give you their all at all times. And Malik Beasley is a guy that I feel like is just getting snubbed where he's going. He's like just get kind of like the guy
Yeah,
that they just nitpick or try to get out of there. And it's like, why? The guy
yeah.
shoots the ball at a high clip and plays
He's a
okay defense. You
right. He's
don't
a reasonable defender.
right, he's an average defender, whatever. But that's another guy too. Jared Vanderbilt is a dude that is like he's not a great player, but he just does every little thing you need for your team.
Yes.
And he's long, he's lanky, he adds some things. And then get Mo Bamba too for pretty much nothing is like Orlando. Like what? I
No,
don't know.
I think they were done with him. They
Yeah.
were fine with getting rid of him. Yeah.
And it's like Orlando's got such a bigs problem right now. They drafted Franz Wagner and Paulo and all these dudes, and Jonathan Isaac can't stay healthy. But like that's another thing is like Mo Bamba was good last year, and then
Hmm.
you flood the big room, and now it's like, well, now his minutes ran out, and that's like
Yeah.
it's not fair to him. So I would like to see him get back. Fortunately, ankle sprain will probably not make it back until the play-in time ish.
Right.
That's a stretch.
A month or two.
So he's probably done. But you need LeBron to get into the play-in, and you need him to play just
Yeah.
because, So if they're healthy, they're going to be dangerous, and I think they make it out of that first round right away. So
Yeah. Okay. So I like that too because what they did with the trades, I think, and getting Rui Hachimura and
yes,
Vanderbilt, because they have AD and LeBron, two guys that are wildly skilled and incredibly intelligent from a basketball perspective, but the effort that you get from those guys isn't always top notch. So what they did was they went out and got lanky wings that play hard. And I think that was the perfect complement to fill out that roster. So I think they're in a good position. I would love to see them get to the 6th seed so they don't have to bother with the play-in, just
right.
personally because I'm a LeBron fan. But I think they do probably end up in the play-in, but I think they make it out of it. I would guess that they
They
make it
got a
out
chance.
of it. And yeah,
They got a chance. They just need to find a way to get healthy. And they have shooters, they have wings, and they have depth. where they did not have that before. So
Exactly.
if their health can trend towards the right way, they'll be somewhat good.
Yeah.
LeBron should be coming back here not next week, but the week after. It says on here he's getting examined again in about 3 weeks as of March 2nd. So we're getting to that 3 week mark
Yeah.
in a week or so. So if he can
We're
get
not
back
far off.
before the play-in time, they should be
Yeah.
all right. So
If they can hit a little bit of a stride. So let me ask you this then. We both think they get in. If they end up as the 7 or the 8 seed after the play-in, they probably either get, well, they get one of 3 teams. They get Denver, Sacramento, or Memphis. Would you have a problem picking the Lakers over any of those 3 teams?
just probably just Denver, but that would provide a challenge against Denver, I think. But Denver will prevail in ways that they've just grinded teams down in the fourth quarter. I think so. I think they've stayed. They've stayed. Right now, they're showing a little weakness. I think, but I would say I think that they could beat if the Grizz can't get right all of a sudden. I think they could beat the Grizzlies, and I think they can beat the Kings, just because the
Absolutely.
Kings haven't been there before, and the
Mhm.
Grizzlies don't have a guy that can hold those dudes accountable. So
Agreed.
and Dylan Brooks is just going to try to fluster LeBron, and it's just going to be it's poking the bear. You don't want to poke the bear,
Yeah.
and that's what
Yeah.
he's going to do. And it's just like, man, Dylan.
Shades of Lance Stevenson blowing in LeBron's ear. Can
Yeah,
you see that happen? Something like
yes,
that happening
something
again?
like that happened. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
something weird, So
So I wouldn't. I think if the Lakers do get in and they make it into a first round playoff series, I think they'd probably take Denver to 6 or 7 games. I wouldn't be shocked if they win though. I think they could beat the Kings. I think they'd beat the Grizzlies. But I wouldn't be surprised if they give Denver a run for their money in a 1-8 matchup. So I think we're in the kind of the same boat there. Anybody else in the West you want to touch on? Let's talk about Golden State. We haven't talked on Golden State yet.
yeah,
What are you thinking about Golden State? So let me give you a couple quick numbers. Golden State this year are 35 and 33. They're currently in the 6th seed. They're a half game back of the Clippers for the 5 seed. At home, they are 28 and 7, and they've won 7 in a row. On the road, they are 7 and 26, and they've lost 8 in a row. Explain this to me, Beaker. I don't get it. What is it with the Warriors that they've got such weird splits?
I want to say that they love playing in the Chase Center.
Yeah,
Chase Center, new facility. You're used to it. You're shooting it in almost every day. Um, One of those things that as a shooter, they have so many shooters. As a shooter, I think they've just when you're shooting in your own gym, you always play better, and your role players play better.
mhm.
I think they're sitting out more on road games, maybe a little bit more, which is crappy, but
Resting guys, you mean?
yeah, resting dudes, and then they've also just can't stay healthy.
Sure.
Curry's played how many games this year? I don't even
Yeah.
want to know. Guys just aren't staying healthy, but that is weird. I didn't know it was that drastic.
It's very bad. Yeah.
But I mean, they are a different animal at home. They are always tough, but they just need. I mean, Wiggins was out for a little bit. Gary Payton too won't be back for a bit, but
Yeah.
um, Kuminga got hurt the other day. That was kind of interesting. But yeah, like I said, they don't. And again, playing basketball in April and May and June, it comes down to your health. And
Yep.
I think with Curry not being there, they definitely struggled. But
So it makes me nervous with the Warriors. You'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt because they've done it so much for so long, and
right,
you still have the core guys. I mean, Curry's back. It seems like he's working his way in. He was great against the Bucks the other night in the fourth quarter and overtime. But if you've got Steph right, Clay right, and Draymond right, I think you have a pretty good chance. But I worry about their offensive production when Curry's off the court. And I think you get into a playoff series and teams will exploit that disadvantage. And I think that could hurt them. So if they stay at the 6th seed or they fall into the play-in, I like them to get in even if they do fall into the play-in tournament. But if they're 6, 7, 8 and they're matched up with Denver, Sacramento, or Memphis, that's a series I think they could struggle with, and we saw them kind of struggle with Memphis last year. But I think they could easily go down in that matchup. I think they would probably be favored over either Sacramento or Memphis. Even though they'd be the lower seed, I think they would probably be favorites in that series. It might be slight, but I don't see. I think there is a world in which they could get knocked out in the first round, and we don't see them pass the first round.
You know, as a Bucks fan, I love it. You know, one of those things where it's another team we get to avoid.
You know,
But yeah, no, I'm just looking at more of the games, like kind of seeing this. I'm trying to look at the game logs and stuff, and it seems like Thompson's played horrible on the road. Like I'm looking at this, and like Poole's been the leading scorer on the road when Curry's been out,
sure.
and that's fine. But then all of a sudden, like Poole doesn't get his touches, so I don't know what happened against OKC, Los Angeles, Memphis. I don't know exactly, but yeah, it is. I think they just don't have the depth at the big position now that they traded Wiseman, but Wiseman wasn't even.
He wasn't doing what they need him to do. No.
No, he wasn't vibing with what they're trying to do, and he's not. He's a pick and roll big. You need him
Hmm.
to be able to pick and roll, and they don't run any pick and roll.
Yeah,
So, so I guess they're one of those teams where
it's just gonna kind of depend.
it's going to depend on how they're playing offensively. You know what I should say, you know what you're going to get offensively, but they have to shoot better on the road.
Yeah,
They got to do what they normally do on the road, but then they got to get stops. Like they're giving up, I feel like, a lot more points than I'm used to seeing them give up. I mean, on the road, they're giving up 137 against OKC. And then even 115 against Lakers, 124 against the Lakers. Clippers score 134. They're
yeah,
just not playing defense. So
yeah.
it looks
And
like the Lakers have had their number in the last they've lost the Lakers 3 straight times. So
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, that gets tough. So, I like the matchup between them and the Kings a lot because I think that would be a series in which you'd have a lot of scoring and not a whole lot of defense. But we'll see what happens. Anyone else in the West you want to touch on?
No, I think that should be good. That's pretty much everyone that I mean, the only team we didn't touch on is really the Timberwolves or the Mavs, but
I
the
don't
Mavs
think
are
there's much
something.
there.
No, there's not much. We know Luca and Kyrie are going to get them there, and that's all. So let's move on to the East.
All right. Are we on a Bucks Celtics collision course, or you think there's anyone that can upset that?
Sixer, I don't know. I don't know. Probably not. Probably not. You know, it looks like it's going to be Bucks Celtics, and that's what we deserve.
Agreed.
Um, although I have such a burning passion for the Celtics. We just seems like we've matched up with them for like the last 6 years, at least once in a round, and it's like, I
Yeah,
can't stand these guys.
yeah.
And so, but if the Sixers can figure it out relatively like somewhere, I guess, defensively when it comes to playing the Celtics, they could get there. But you know what you're going to get from Joel. You know what you're going to
Hmm.
get, there. But it's like you need Harden to be close to that. See, like
Yeah.
when Harden plays the Bucks, it's like he went for 38, 9, and
Oh my gosh.
11. It's like, why can't he do that every night like he used
Right.
to? I just don't know.
Yeah.
So I think it's Bucks Celtics pretty. It's almost locked.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the only team, like you said, I think that could upset that is the 76ers. I don't think Cleveland has enough, as good as they are on the front line defensively with Mobley and Jared Allen. I don't think they have enough to match up with the size that both the Bucks and the Celtics have on the wings. I don't think they have the perimeter defense to hold down those teams. So I think it would be fun, a matchup between Cleveland and the 76ers, or Cleveland and the Celtics, or Cleveland and the Bucks even. It would be a fun series, but I think that's a 6-game series and the Cavs go down. But you're right about the 76ers. I think if you look back, when the Bucks and the Sixers played a few weeks ago, and it was a wild game and the Sixers won late, James Harden was vintage James Harden
Right.
in that game, and down the stretch in the fourth quarter, he was absolutely amazing, and he was almost perfect in that game, and it was so frustrating because if you watch the game, the Bucks were up big. I think they were up 17 or 18 or something like that, middle of the game, and the second half, it was kind of a game where you just kind of felt it slipping away a point at a time, a point at a time, a point at a time. And the Sixers were just kind of hanging around, and they eventually clawed their way back and took control of the game. And James Harden and Joel Embiid were amazing. So if you get that kind of offensive output from those two guys, they're going to be really tough to beat. But we've seen year after year after year with James Harden in the playoffs, he just doesn't have what it takes. He never has, and I will believe it when I see it. So I'm going to be late to that party, and I'm going to say the same for Joel Embiid. As amazing as he is, as big as he is, and as skilled as he is, we haven't seen it. He hasn't
Yeah.
gotten past the second round. So
And
I'm going to believe it when I see it with the Sixers.
correct. And I agree there is Harden was literally one 3-pointer away from beating the Golden State Warriors in their prime. I mean,
Absolutely
they went like 0 of 27 or whatever that
nuts.
stretch.
It was
Nuts.
nuts.
One of the worst meltdowns of all time. But it's like you look at Joel Embiid and it's like he just loses his conditioning during the playoffs. Like you just see maybe it's like maybe you should sit out a little bit more because your team can win without you. They're
Yeah,
not horrible without him. They definitely need Tobias to be a relatively close, close to 42, 43% can 3-point shooter. And then, I mean, Tyrese Maxey's their third best player.
I love
And
Maxey.
Maxey kills the Bucks too.
Yeah,
It's just like he's just so quick and he shoots so well all the time in Milwaukee or even there. And another guy too that absolutely kills us for some odd reason is Niang. For some odd
yeah,
reason, like he just comes in and he just know it's going in every time he shoots it. It's like,
yeah.
come on, why are we leaving? And the Budenholzer system is,
Gonna
live
leave
and die,
open
live
shooters.
and die.
You
And
know,
this year it's been better. I mean, they've definitely rotated better and stuff like that. That's the one thing I noticed like right away is they've played better defense towards the corner threes, but like I think they're falling back to the ways
you know,
a little bit here and there. But like when they're up by so many points, their offense gets stale, the Bucks do, and then they don't keep relentlessly attacking, and then they let teams hit 3-pointers, and it's like you sit there and you're sitting there watching them, and it's like, damn it, like come on.
yeah.
And so you're like, but again, Bucks Celtics, but we get the better of them if we're healthy,
I
So as
think
long
so
as
too.
Middleton's healthy, as long as Holiday's healthy, we just gotta it's limiting the role players. It's limiting Al Horford, it's limiting Grant Williams open 3-pointers, because those are the two guys that just destroy us.
Yeah,
And limiting Marcus Smart's antics, I guess you want to say. I mean,
you know,
I've never been a fan of him, never will be.
I'm with you.
He's just a scumbag on the floor, and he's my favorite word to use of him is he's a fake tough guy.
Okay,
So
I think that's really fair. I
yeah,
think that's fair. I feel the same kind of way. It's like it's not as bad as Dylan Brooks, but it kind of feels the same way, right? We talked about him a little bit earlier. So
yeah,
Marcus Smart's, I think, a good comparison to him. But
yeah,
I think you hit it right on the head with the Bucks. If we want to transition into them, I think Middleton is the key with them. If he's out there and he can be healthy and he can kind of revert back to what he was when the Bucks made their finals run, I think he makes all the difference because we saw what it was without him last year when they met up with the Celtics, and it just seemed like they were a shooter short. And I think they've compensated for that.
yes,
Bringing in a couple of different guys. They bring in Crowder, and they just brought in Dragic, and they brought in Joe Ingles. So they have wings, veteran guys that have been there in big games that can hit some shots and play a little bit of defense. But I think without Middleton, I think they might struggle against Boston. Even if he's out there and reasonably productive, I think they'll be missing a little bit. But I think if they have all their guys, and even if they do continue to bring Middleton off the bench, I give the Bucks the edge in that series against the Celtics. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be
right,
tough. It's not going to go easy. So I think that's the collision course we're on. Um,
yeah,
and being the 1-2 seed, it'll be a while before we see it, because I don't think the Sixers are a game and a half back of the Celtics. I don't think they jump them. The Bucks are a game and a half ahead of the Celtics currently. I would like to think that they would finish out in the 1 seed, but there's still a couple of games to play yet, so that can change. But I think we are indeed on a collision course between the Bucks and the Celtics.
yeah, and I agree 100%. The Sixers are on like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight win streak, but they play the Cavs 3:15, so that is Wednesday night. And that'll be ESPN primetime game. So that'll be fun to watch. That's a big game for seeding as well. So
Oh, no
it looks
question.
like, I mean, I would say Philly's got it tough. I'm just looking at it now. They still got Golden State, they still got Cleveland once, they still have us once, they still have or Milwaukee, Boston, they still got Miami, and then they still got to play Denver, Dallas, and Phoenix yet too. So
That's a tough road to finish the
that's a
year.
tough route to finish the year. Maybe that helps them. Maybe I don't know, but that's not a fun stretch to end the year in. So hopefully that doesn't make them the 4 seed, because it's like we don't want to. Well, I would love to not have to play the Sixers and the Celtics in a run. It is what
Exactly.
it is, but
Yeah.
that's why we need this 1 seed bad. So
Yeah. I think you're exactly right for both home court advantage and for the ability to not have to play the Sixers and the Celtics. If you could let those two teams play each other and then get
yes,
whoever wins, I think you give yourself a much better chance. Even if you have to go through Cleveland, it would be a tough series as well, but I think you have a much better chance against Cleveland than you do against the Celtics and Sixers, even if it's a 7-game series. So give me
1000%.
give me a team that's outside that top 4 in the East that you think could make a push.
A team that's making a push right now is the Knicks. I know
Yeah.
they lost yesterday, but the Knicks have kind of just we're like, you know what, we're gonna cause some havoc, and they've moved out of the bubble,
Hmm.
moved into the 6th spot right now.
Yeah.
They got to stay a little bit healthy. I know tonight Brunson's not playing against the Lakers, so that probably chalks the Lakers up for a win tonight. But Brunson and Randall have been just the duo that it's been fun. It's fun to
Yeah.
watch. And so I don't know if they can keep it together, but that could bode a struggle for the Sixers. First
Exactly.
off, they don't really have a big that can guard Joel, which but they got dudes that can guard Harden and
Hmm.
match up, and so. But I think they might end up squeaking to the 5 spot. The Nets, there's no way the Nets are not a play-in team. I mean,
You
the
think
Nets.
so?
I don't know. I just don't they don't have a guy, but it
Right.
seems, same time so we'll talk about them in a little bit. I guess that's another team we could talk about.
Yeah.
But the Knicks, yeah, I think the Knicks are actually worse at home than they are on the road.
Isn't that something?
They're 19-16 at home and 20-14. And usually it's when the Knicks are in the Garden, that's tough. So it's
Right.
like, why are they not playing better in the Garden? But I don't know. So it's the East is such a crapshoot after the top 3.
I'm with you.
The Cavs are finally starting to hit that incline, that trending. But it's like even then they're just like they can't stay healthy and stuff. And so I don't know. It's one of those. It's just the health thing. They got to stay healthy. Everybody's got to stay healthy in that little spot. But I
Yeah.
would say, yeah, the Knicks. I don't know. What are you? Any thoughts on
I'm
the Knicks?
I'm with you on the Knicks. The only problem I have with the Knicks is Julius Randle. I've
Yeah,
never been a believer, and I haven't. I know he can put up big numbers. I know he can score the basketball. But I don't think he's the guy that drives that team. I think it's Jalen Brunson
right.
100%. And I think if you have to rely on Brunson to get you there offensively, I think you're okay. I think
Yeah,
you're in a decent shape. But once you get to a point where you need to rely on clutch points from Julius Randle, I think you're in trouble. I think
right.
you're in really big trouble. So I liked where the Knicks are headed. But I think ultimately what they should probably do in the offseason is move Randall and try and get a better piece to play alongside Brunson, because I don't think he has that kind of clutch gene that you need to win multiple playoff series in a row. So I like the way they've played recently. They played against the Celtics a couple of weeks ago, and they went into double overtime, and that game was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
And it was actually Emmanuel quickly that kind of did the bulk of the work for
yeah.
the Knicks.
Brunson
So
was out that night too.
yeah,
It was like a back to back. They had just beaten the Heat on a buzzer beater, which I don't. Not disagreeing with you with the Randall thing. I think when he's the primary ball handler, they're in trouble. So
yeah,
Brunson's got to be them there to get them in offense. Randall being the leading option, I think it's fine right now. And I
okay,
think it might maybe not to win the title. They're never going to be, I don't think they'll ever get to that point where they can transcend the Milwaukee or Boston right now.
sure.
I think the East is run by Milwaukee and Boston for the next 5 years.
The
So
foreseeable future, at least. Yeah,
and the Sixers, unfortunately, they're in that bad rep where they're right there too, but they don't have Giannis and they don't have Jason Tatum, and so
exactly.
They have Embiid, but it's showcased with the Nuggets with only having Jokic. It's hard with your bigs and stuff. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, the Knicks, I don't know, the Randall, and they need quickly to play as consistent as that, and then they need guys like RJ Barrett to stay. I think that's a guy they might not pay. So
sure. They could let him walk in free
they
agency.
could let
I'm
him
with you.
walk because he's so wildly inconsistent from three, and they need him to be on point for them to be that better than that 6 seed. And
Yeah,
so it definitely probably is Brunson when it comes to running the offense, but Randall scoring. Brunson and Randall, as long as they're scoring 25 a night apiece, it gives them a chance. And then they need Barrett to put in 20 a night as well, almost. And so do they beat one of those teams? No, but I think they cause havoc and some. I think if they would fall to a bubble team, that would be a nightmare matchup in the first round for the Celtics because they have they have wings, they have guys that match up with Tatum and Brown,
absolutely.
and
They're
then
going to be a tough out.
so yeah, and that's definitely a tough one. So if they can avoid that spot, fantastic. But I still don't know.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I think they're a tough out, but let's move down the standings in the East one more slot. Let's touch on the Heat. Where are you with the Heat? Because this is a team that I can't seem to figure out.
I think everybody can't figure them out. They can't play away from home as the away record is 14-20, and they're 22-13 at home. So it's obviously not playing, and they're not doing well against the Eastern Conference. They're 19-23 in the Eastern Conference, and that just doesn't make sense.
That's rough, yeah.
Considering how weak the East is on the lower half, especially their division. Their division is awful. I mean, it
It
is
is.
horrible. You
Yeah.
got Orlando, you got Charlotte, just two doormats in that division. And then and then the Hawks too. The Hawks haven't figured it out either.
No.
But I think they're gonna figure it out now. But we'll talk about them after this. The Heat, I just don't know. I think it's just the inconsistencies with who's playing every night.
Yeah.
And it's not just injuries; they're just sitting. Like Kyle Lowry are you in or are you out? Like that's what
Yeah.
I'm like. Do you want to play basketball or no? Because like
Yeah.
you're getting paid to play a lot
Yeah.
and you're not playing at all. And so I don't know. They always have the thing though with them is they're well coached and
Yes.
they have when they're healthy or when they're playing, they have depth and wing depth. But I think it's coming down a little bit now when it comes because they don't have Jay Crowder, they don't have they've lost their defensive wing pieces.
Yes.
It's now starting to be like the guys like Tyler Hero and Max Strus and Gabe Vincent. And I mean, looking at the roster right now, it's not pretty by any means.
No. Well, and
Um,
it goes to show, I think, in the fact that they are 36-33 on the season. So they have a winning record. They're above 500 by a few games, yet they have a negative point differential, which doesn't really, those two things don't usually go together. So it
yeah,
reminds me of, it kind of reminded me of the Vikings from this year, where they ended up with a pretty, a solid record. They made the playoffs,
sure.
but their point differential was negative. So, I mean, it kind of leads you to believe they're not that good of a team when their record doesn't
Right.
say that. So they're a funky squad. I think Jimmy Butler, as long as he's playing every night, will give you a shot. And he's a guy that can, at the head of a team, can make things difficult for you. But I think Heat culture is coming to a close here. I don't see them with a way out.
Thank God. Like I hate that term so much. But yeah, like I'm looking at their statistics too right now. It's Jimmy Bam and Tyler, and then it's a huge drop off. It's 8
Yes.
points per game drop off, and that's just
Yeah.
they gotta have that fourth. In the NBA, you gotta have 4 or 5 options, where that they're almost getting 15 a game or
Right.
close. So but like Lowry's played 45 games this year, and Jimmy's only played 54, Tyler's played 55. And I think the guy leading them in playing time or playing games is Max Strus with 67. And so, and
That doesn't sound great.
it doesn't sound great. It doesn't sound ideal. He's a D2 guy. I think he played at DePaul too. So like he's definitely a, bet on yourself kind of person, which is great. We love those stories, but if you're playing for the Miami Heat, we don't love those stories as much.
Yeah.
But they seem to find those diamonds in the rough.
Yeah.
They've been good at that. So
yeah, I think half of their roster was undrafted or something or close to it, something like that.
crazy.
That's not a title team.
No.
That's not how you win championships. So I mean, even coming from the Bucks, I mean, Giannis was drafted, what was it, 18th or 15th or something like that. It was like middle of the round. And Chris Middleton played in the D League back then. So
Yeah.
I mean, there are rags to riches stories in the NBA, but when half of your team is undrafted, that's not going to bode well for you.
Yeah, and your starting power forward to match up with Bam is Kevin Love. And so
Yeah,
Kevin Love, I love Kevin Love. He's just not UCLA Kevin Love anymore,
no,
or even Cleveland Kevin Love.
right.
Minnesota and UCLA Kevin Love is like one of my favorite players of all time, just because he was fat and he just embraced the fat.
But he
He
could
was
shoot it,
so
man. He was
electric.
lights out.
Yeah. He was lights out and he just rebounded. He was tenacious on the boards. So, but he's just not that way anymore. And I think there's a lot of defensive responsibility on Bam to hold down a
Yeah,
paint, and like he's always kind of been a fit giver to Giannis just because he's the same size, but he's not strong enough.
roughly.
Roughly, same length, but like
Hmm.
he's not a guy that can just stop. Nobody can stop him, but he's always been a
Yeah,
guy that has given him fits. So it's like,
yeah,
but yeah, he can't do it by himself. So
right. Exactly. So I don't really see much out of the rest of the East. I mean, so the Heat are seventh, Atlanta, Toronto, and Chicago are 8, 9, 10. I don't think anything really comes of any of those teams. The Pacers are a half game back of the 10 seed. I don't think they really have much going on either. And the similarly with Washington, who is level on record and a half game back of the 10 seed. Washington is 31 and 37. So I'm not real keen on any of those teams. Let's transition into the teams that are not going to make the playoffs most likely. Give me a team. This could go for either conference. Who do you like going forward for the next few years of the teams that's probably not going to make the playoffs this year?
um I would say it's gotta be the Magic or the Thunder, in my opinion.
Um,
And the Thunder could still squeak in yet.
true.
But the Magic, I mean, they look like they're starting to figure out their roster a little bit. Um, it's gonna take time when you have so many bigs and so many like ball dominant guards that don't really have a role. So I think
Yeah,
they're just taking the best player available in drafts right now, and I think it's figuring it out. That's a team though with Paolo. I mean, Paolo looks like the real deal, and I mean,
absolutely.
he's been the lock rookie of the year from the moment that the season started, but he looks like he's locked in for that.
Yeah.
I just don't know a whole lot else about their roster. I know obviously moving Mo Bamba was probably the best thing they could have done for him and themselves, just because it's another guy they don't need to try to fit in the games. I'm gonna look at their
So I
uh,
think you made it. I think you made a key point with Orlando, and Orlando was one of the teams that I would have answered this question with too, because of Paulo, specifically because of Paulo, because it seems like he's the guy that you can build a championship roster around. Granted, he's 19, so
yeah,
that's not something that's going to happen overnight or even in the next year or two, but that's a guy that you can start building with and just kind of try and figure out what pieces you need to put around him. And Franz is a guy, I think Franz Wagner, I think is a guy that you keep on that roster
right.
and try and build with as well. He'll be, a supplemental piece. But Paulo is absolutely a home run, I think, and they made the right decision in that draft going with him at one. So I'm really impressed with what the Magic have done from a roster development standpoint. Obviously, they're not having a great year. They're 28 and 40, which hit their over from a win total, but I don't know if they really had much higher expectations than just to figure out kind of what they have in Paulo and kind of try and figure out what they need to do to build from with him going forward.
Correct. I agree. Wendell Carter Jr. has been. I mean, he's missed a couple
A
games,
stud.
but he's been a stud. Last night he had double double, and he was ultimately the reason why they beat the Heat last night. Um, the guy they probably got to move on from, I would say, is it's nice to have that veteran presence right now. I'm shocked that he's actually on the roster still. He didn't get a buyout option. Is Gary Harris.
Yeah.
I think it's nice to have that, and it's nice shooting. He's going to get his looks. He's on the team, but I think that stunts. I mean, I think it's nice to have him, but I think they don't know what they do with Markel Fultz either.
Who's actually been better. I'll give him credit. He just really rejuvenated his career and he's played well. But
Correct.
I don't know if he's the point guard that you go forward with.
Right. I mean, the problem with Suggs and Anthony is seems like they're never healthy together.
Right.
So Markel being fully healthy this year is big. Because when Markel blew out his knee last year, it was like, darn, like he was really starting to find his groove in Orlando and he started to find his shooting stroke a little bit. You can see him finding the love of basketball again because that's so tough when you're in the wrong situation
Yes.
and you all of a sudden lose your mental when it comes to the game. Like we see it every day. We see it. I mean, we see it every game with players. Like if you're not mentally right, and you lose, you get the yips or like
Hmm.
something like that. You lose a guy like that, it's tough. And
Yep.
so you lose it. He's a veteran point guard, I think, for those young guys to help them. I'm not sure. I don't know enough. Like with Okiki, I know he had that ACL injury and stuff with Auburn, and he's never fully kind of figured it out. But a surprising player for them has been Bull too.
Yes.
The development of
Yeah.
Bull has been,
Who's made a big jump.
yeah, right. Like that's why I think they got rid of Bamba because Bull has figured it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and then Mo Wagner too. Mo Wagner is Franz's brother, so they got
Hmm.
the Wagner brothers, and Mo is not a fantastic player, but he can stretch the floor, he can shoot it a little bit, and he's going to be a pest. He's pestered
Yeah.
Giannis wherever he's been. It's like
And he's
he's one of
big.
those
Yeah.
guys that he's one of those guys that's got under Giannis' skin that nobody really. So he's the guy that just gets under people's skin. That's what you need. You need a
Yeah.
couple guys that have been there before. So I think
Yeah.
it's definitely a young, fun team.
I would like to see more out of Jalen Suggs. I think next year is a year in which we expect to see something from him. I think you should see some pop from him. He's 21. I think this is year two now for him,
Too.
right? So next year would be his third year. He's going to be 22. I think you would expect to see some kind of leap from him, at least from an offensive perspective. I know he hasn't shot the ball well this year, so I would like to see a jump from him. You're going to continue to see more from Paulo. So I think a couple more pieces. They could be a team that goes out and trades for a player because it seems like they've got a bunch of pieces. They could do a package deal and bring in a big guy to pair with Paulo and Fultz and the Wagner guys. But I would like to see something more from Jalen Suggs in the near future.
I think they have quite a bit of cap space too coming up because those
Sure.
guys are all on rookie deals, so
Right.
they could definitely be in that spot where maybe they land Bronny in a year and then they bring in LeBron. Who knows? One of those things. So
Could be an interesting fit.
um,
So let's flip over then to the Western Conference because you brought up the Thunder, and I
yeah.
love watching this team. I really, really do, especially when SGA is out there. He hasn't played a whole heck of a lot down the stretch here, which is I think puzzling because they were in a good spot. I think as of the All-Star break, they were still a play-in team. They've now fallen out of that. They're only a half game back, but they have fallen out of that now. What do you think about the way that the Thunder are trending?
I I I don't know. Like it's weird. They just SGA has become that guy and all season long. I mean, he was all-star, he proved it. Giddy has just been
Yes.
Giddy's a triple, like he flirts with the triple double every night.
Yeah.
Just does little things. He's not a guy that's gonna wow you with athleticism, but he just plays ball like a guy that, like an old man playing old YMCA
Mm-hmm.
ball, you know.
Yep.
But like guys like what they did in the draft with Jalen Williams from Santa Clara, that dude flew up draft boards on draft night because they're like, holy crap, this guy is
A stud.
intangibles are unbelievable. And granted it's the WCC. I think that conference is getting a lot better. Santa Clara, I think they had a player of the year, actually from Wisconsin, the kid that went to St. John's Northwestern Military Academy, but that's piggybacking. Um,
Sure.
Jalen Williams is definitely, they have two Jalen Williams. So
Yeah.
this one's JALE and Williams.
Yeah.
But he is definitely he's just blossomed into a great player. And I think they said it's just because his intangibles, his length, his wing, he's
Mm-hmm.
just a perfect wing. And that's why I was like, God, if he would have fell to where Milwaukee was last year, it would have been just awesome. But,
Yeah.
but then also they got the kid from Arkansas, the other Jalen Williams he's
Yep.
starting right now, as of right now. And that's crazy to me. So, yeah, I don't know. They're playing a bunch of just random dudes, but at the same time, Trey Mann's young. They got Dario Saric. That's a nice veteran big guy to come off.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess Lou Dort too. That helps. I don't.
I like Dort a lot. I'm a little. I think you're gonna get more from him though. Yet he's only 23. I think he's a guy that you end up seeing another jump from.
Mhm.
But then they've got Chet. Chet's gonna be there with them next year too. So I
Yes,
think this is a team that you could see make an offseason move as well and try and push themselves into a position where they could make a run. But I think this is a team that finishes in the top six of the Western Conference next year if they can stay healthy, especially if SGA continues the way he is, and if they get any kind of decent, consistent play out of Chet. I think this is a team to watch out for in the Western Conference.
I would agree. I would agree. They have some youth, and then they got a lot of money too. They're gonna have a lot of money to spend. Sam Presti is also really good at making trades, as we know. I mean, he
Yes,
acquired guys that are all world and then has dumped them for picks galore. And I mean, I think he got away with robbery with the Clippers.
without question.
He robbed at least 8 picks from them, and he got SGA. And it's like SGA is, SGA is playing better than Paul George right now.
And
And
that's just it. So I don't know if I would have done a straight swap at that point, SGA for Paul George. But if you offered it to me now, I probably would take it SGA for
yeah,
Paul George straight up. And then they got, like you said, all those picks on top of it. So I
yeah,
think that was a really good move. So I like the way that the Thunder are trending. Um, I don't think they can make it happen this year, but I would like to see Chet come in next year and actually make a big impact on that team with SGA. So I'm excited about the Thunder.
yes, they definitely got some promise. So it'll be
Yeah.
fun.
So we've been trending down the standings here. Let's look forward to next year. Um, you could call him a unicorn, Victor Wembanyama. Where do you think he lands next year? And uh, give me then another team that you want to see him with. So where do you think he ends up, and where do you want him to end up?
Oh, well, looks like the favorites right now would be either Detroit or Houston or San Antonio. But
Yep.
I think Houston would be the most fun spot for him because I don't think they have that true. Houston or Detroit would be ideal for him but I would say Houston because I'm gonna lock it out on Houston because they got guys, and then if they got some money too. I know Harden was talking about going back there,
Yeah, I don't know if I buy that.
but yeah, I don't think so. I wouldn't leave Joel if I could,
Agreed.
especially for how late he is in his life, in pro career wise. Yeah, the San Antonio Spurs are one team I don't want him to go to. I
Yeah.
just don't. Like I really you'd almost feel bad for him. One, San Antonio is not like a very popular city to be at. They got a great rich history, and that's fantastic. But yeah, not there, not those two. And I
Yeah.
guess Charlotte would be the worst for him either, but I don't know if Charlotte gets the top end of the percentage or whatever.
Yeah. So I like that you brought up both San Antonio and Charlotte because I would hate for him to go to either of those teams.
Yes.
Charlotte specifically because of the organizational structure. I think they're bad from the top down, and that leads from Michael Jordan as the owner. As much as great of a basketball player as he was, he's an awful owner of a basketball team. You can just see they've done nothing since he's taken over that team, and it's no shot at him. He's just not very good at that job in particular. So I would hate for him to go to Charlotte. I would hate for him to go to San Antonio because I don't know how much time Pop has left. So I would love to see him with Pop, but is he going to be there for 20 years of Victor's career potentially?
Right.
Most definitely not. So I don't want him to go to San Antonio. I would love for him to go to Detroit though. And the reason I say that is because they have Cade Cunningham and they have Jaden Ivey
Yeah.
in the front court or in the backcourt, excuse me. So I would really like to see him in Detroit with those other young guards. And I think that could be a really fun and explosive team. I think they would need more on the wing to round out that roster, but I think that would be the best landing spot for him from a roster perspective.
I would agree with you. I think the only tough part about them is they got a lot of bigs. They would just have to probably move on with one of them because
Yep.
they have Bagley, they have Wiseman, they have Duran. But I guess that isn't actually that many. So they got the three young bigs, I think. But like, what do you do with Wiseman at that point? Do you keep Wiseman? Do you run the Wiseman?
Well, I
But
guess that depends on what
Victor,
you think Wiseman is. I mean, where are you with Wiseman? Because I mean, I haven't seen anything to believe that he's going to be an impact player for the next 10 to
right,
15 years.
right. Like it seems like he's taking advantage of the minutes that he's getting given in Detroit, which is nice. I just think he's a guy that can go get you a bucket and get you a rebound, but he's not a guy that you need to be playing in a structured offense like Golden State.
Right.
I think he just didn't fit in with that. And he's not a screener. He's not a Kayvon Looney who knows his role.
Sure.
He's an
Agreed.
explosive big that needs to be running the pick and roll. And, when healthy, those guys could be very good. Bagley's another guy. I think just got in the wrong spot and never could stay healthy. And when he would, he'd get going a little bit and then he'd get hurt and then fall out of rotation. And it's like, well, it's just one of those things where I think right now they'd have to move some pieces around, but I do
certainly.
I do think that would allow them to be very, very proactive in the free agent market to attract some young guys. Cade's got to stay healthy though, too.
Yeah,
So.
that's a good point, because I think Cade, I know they shut him down early. He probably could be. I don't know much about where his injury's at, but I think they shut him down for the rest of the year, and they made that decision right away after he got injured. But I think that was an injury that he probably could have come back from. But what is the purpose at this point? The team is not not very good right now. But I like that core between Cunningham and Ivy, and then if you could add Victor to it, I think that's a trio of guys that you could build around going forward, and then you construct the roster around them and let them kind of build and grow as a trio. And I think that would be a team that you could do some damage with. But I think it's a really interesting way that the season is going to end up, to see who gets the top of the percentage points for the lottery, and that lottery is going to be a massive event to see who gets the first pick.
Oh yeah, I mean, because they're going to get offered things that they have never been offered for the first pick. And I mean, he looks like the real deal. He does.
Oh, without question.
And him doing that against the G League again at that one thing where they did it like Sacramento or wherever that was, where they were able to showcase him a little bit. That was big. Where they'd never done that. They never done that for those young guys. So I think they have to keep. That's something the league should definitely consider, is kind of bringing that out and doing something like that. That would be nice. But yeah, that would probably be Detroit or Houston would be the two best spots for him. Right now, as a full developmental spot where he could come in and be the guy pretty much immediately. Do you at least have guys with the Pistons?
Yes.
Houston, he is the guy, and then they have Jalen Green or whatever. Those guys.
Because who did they just? Yeah, because who did Houston get last year? They had the number 2 pick.
Jabari Smith,
that's what it is. Wing shooter.
He's gonna improve. I definitely could not believe how bad he was off the dribble. I did not know he was not, like, he couldn't put the ball on the deck.
Cannot handle the ball.
And I'm like, and I could see it, like, it wasn't his strength in college, but like you really saw it when Auburn got upset in the tournament last year. Like, he was getting ball pressured and he couldn't put the ball on the deck and score. And it's like, oh wow, like this guy's 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", and he can't. They're calling him Kevin Durant, and he can't dribble and shoot. Like, but so he'll get there. I think another couple years of development, playing a lot more. They got a lot of young guys. It's a tough spot for him to be in. A lot of young guys, but I don't know. Those are definitely the two. Those are definitely the two spots that you would be or play the best in right away.
Sure.
That I could see maybe trading some pieces to go get him is maybe like a Portland or like I guess Indiana, maybe doing some moves. I think those would be some teams that could maybe get interested in something like that.
So I think Portland is a good team to touch on before we call it a night. I'm getting to the point where I think Dame needs to move on from Portland, and not because he should chase a ring or anything like that. In particular, the goal in the NBA is to win a ring. Yes, every year that should be your goal, but I just think he's wasting away in Portland. I want to see him on a contender with guys that can compete with him, because he can do so many amazing things on offense. He's just a limited defender. So I want him to be with a team that can play with him and put them in a position to compete for a championship. And I just don't think he's going to get there in Portland. What do you think about that situation?
Yeah, I think the ship has sailed. Unfortunately, we actually touched on it like a week ago or 2 weeks ago in a group chat, and I mean, I was defending him more so like of how great he is. And just the front office just is missing that one guy. And now they, maybe it was more than one piece. Maybe it was a piece or two, but like with him and CJ, they just didn't do the front office didn't do any. They left Terry Stotts in too
Mhm.
long, and you saw their offense would stale out in the playoffs.
Yep.
Then you didn't have a third guy to go to besides those two. So say one of those two has an off night, there was never a third guy, and they saw success against the Pelicans that year when they had Mirotic because they
Yep.
had that. I think, yeah, they had that. They had that. I guess that one guy that kind of brought the defense out a little
The
bit,
big wing 3-and-D guy. Yeah.
and it's just one of those things where I think they just don't. They didn't have it, and so I love Dame. He's been on my fantasy team for years. I've always been a supporter, and I love seeing him play. But yeah, you're right. It's rotting away. It's probably time. I thought he should have made that forced move to Dallas to join Luca
Yes.
last year
When he had the chance. Yeah.
when he had the chance, because I think him and Luca would be just unbelievable. And so Kyrie is Kyrie, but like I just think that that'll blow up eventually. But
Yeah.
Dame, I would love a Dame for Middleton swap or something. That would
Oh my
be
gosh.
it would, Dame with Dame and Giannis have talked about teaming up for years now.
Oh really? Okay.
They've kind of
I,
like definitely they've sent like subtle shots at each other a little bit where it'd be nice, but like I don't know. I think he's kind of hit that spot too where he's 32. It's one of those things where
yeah.
he's got to make the move to demand a trade, go to a spot like either Miami or Toronto or somewhere like that. Toronto would be a fun spot for him, I think.
Yeah.
Looking at it right
Brown with
now,
Siakam.
you swap Van Vliet and Lillard. Money doesn't necessarily match up right there, but then you maybe make another move or two right there.
You make it work.
That helps him get out of there and move on. And
Yeah.
that would be ideal for him at least. It's
Yeah.
tough in the East right now, but the East is not the strongest. It's very top heavy, and
Agreed.
you're at least making the playoffs and you're competing. Will you be, for him to win a title, he's probably going to go to a team like Denver or a team like Denver or Milwaukee probably to win a title, because I don't think I can see the Celtics being able to afford a guy like Lillard. And
Well,
I
and you're
don't know.
giving up big pieces. I don't think they want to give up. Are they going to give up Jaylen Brown?
How many
I don't think
how many
so.
years in a row have we had the opportunity to trade Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant, and we have not.
Right.
So it's like one of those things where it's like it's never going to happen. Might as well just stick it out. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. So I would love to see Portland move Dame, just put him in a position to win. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. So
right.
anything else you want to touch on? Any particular team or player you want to touch on, B. Kurt, before we let it go?
I guess we were going to kind of briefly talk about the Nets, but
Yeah, go.
I mean, the Nets after that trade, those trades were like, huh, like what are they going to do?
Yeah.
And honestly, they are a well-rounded squad. They don't have a guy right now
They don't
until they
have
figure
the
it
guy.
out. They don't
Right.
have the yes, but you bring back a motivated Spencer Dinwiddie, and then it seems like Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson have just loved being. I think they're definitely sad because they're not on the Suns anymore, where they had been to start their career.
Yeah.
But those guys are thriving right now.
I think they have the chance now. They have the chance to thrive a little bit, where they were kind of held down by Chris Paul and by Devin Booker, and now they kind of have the freedom to go out and play their game, which has been a lot of fun.
Correct. They have a lot of wing depth, and the
Yes.
thing that they're going to be a tough defensive team. A 4-5 matchup for them and the Cavs right now would be so fun.
Agreed.
Because you're going to see Mitchell. I mean, it's going to be tough. Bridges would have to match up with Mitchell, and Mitchell will probably cook just because it's Mitchell.
Right.
But at the same time, that'd be so fun for viewership to be like, I'm not going to watch this game tonight. It's not that interesting. But it's like, I like that when people say that stuff. Those are the games I always tune into, because it's like, you never know. You never know what you're going to be surprised by. And a guy like Dorian Finney-Smith, he's a guy that was undrafted, worked his way up, got a big contract from Dallas, and you like to see those stories, and he's kind of turned it around. He's a spot up guy, and he's a defensive, just out there to play defense. And you match him up with Claxton. It's tough to score in the paint there.
Yeah.
Physically, they're not physically there, but like their length can cause some issues.
Oh, absolutely.
The problem is though, is like, what do you do with Ben?
Oh my gosh.
What the hell do you do with Ben Simmons?
Yeah.
And so here we sit. Here, the thing that I guess we can now move on to is, here lies Ben Simmons, like the grave. Like, his grave has been dug. It's unfortunate. You want to see him thrive. Maybe the Nets are the team that goes out and trades for Dame. Like, hey,
Oh,
here's
okay.
Ben Simmons, take him. We don't want him.
Oh my gosh. I just don't see any value. I don't think anybody has anything for Ben Simmons. When the coach of the team comes out in a press conference and essentially says, I don't know what to do with this guy, that's a problem. That is a big, big problem. So I don't think you can get anything for him. He's probably a guy that ends up getting bought out, but his contract is massive. He's getting paid $35 million to not play basketball.
Thanks, Philly.
Yeah,
um,
unbelievable.
and it's a guy that unfortunately just kind of got the yips.
Yes,
And
without question.
he,
And it's just falling apart.
just falling apart. And it shows how big like I stated earlier, how big mental health is in the game. And
Yeah,
he's got to just get his mind right, figure it out. He definitely can play. We know he can play. Like, he's like the closest thing to Magic Johnson that we've seen,
yes,
that's not LeBron James, but like the next closest thing after that, where his
yeah,
passing ability, his defending ability, it's like, it's out of this world. And it's like,
yeah.
then he touches the ball when he's not the playmaker. And it's like, oh God, like,
Uh-oh.
you're like, oh, I don't have to guard this guy. Sick.
Yeah,
I can, like I just got done with high school basketball and watching high school playoffs, and a kid that I coached for 2 years at Campbell Sport, he had all the stuff to be extremely successful. And his parents, like his grandparents, have a gym at their barn and everything, like incredible setup. Shoots hoops all day. Loves basketball. He is this year would not shoot the basketball, and I coached him for
oh
two
man.
years. And I didn't coach him this year because I got a new job and all that stuff and moved
Yeah,
over to Oakfield. And I'm like, I would go and watch their games because I coached him for 2 years, and teams are guarding him from the paint. And I'm like, dude,
yeah,
it's a wide open, like,
yeah,
you shoot. I was like, I coached you for 2 years, you can shoot. And it's
yeah,
definitely like, you can see it even in the young kids. And it's like, that's something like, you're like, "Ah, I told that kid for 2 years straight, shoot the basketball. I don't care.
yeah,
It doesn't have to be open every time. It's fine. I'm not going to yell at you if you
yeah,
don't. It's like, Ben Simmons is literally that kid, and it's like, he's 23, 24 years old, and he refuses to shoot a basketball. We see all the videos online all summer long. Like, cool, he can shoot, but it's a closed gym. Nobody's
right.
guarding.
Yeah,
Like, literally in basketball games, nobody's guarding him. It's the same thing, but with fans watching.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. To go from being a guy that's 6'10", 240, and moves and can handle like a point guard,
yeah,
was an all-pro level defensive player, almost a defensive player of the year, and got to a point where he was afraid to attempt a wide open layup, could
right.
not dunk the basketball because he was afraid to miss.
Yeah,
It's devastating, and it's one of the biggest collapses I've ever seen in my life. Obviously, I'm not a young guy, not even 30 yet, so I haven't seen a ton of basketball, but
right.
it really is astounding to see the way his career has transpired.
It's brutal. You feel for him, but like at the same time, he's brought it upon himself a little bit.
Agreed. Absolutely. Yeah.
And people not believing in him is another thing too. Like Doc Rivers, I can't stand Doc Rivers. One of the
Oh,
most
okay.
overrated coaches. One of the most overrated
Oh,
coaches. I
okay.
think he's super overrated in a way. Is he's trying. I actually just listened to a tidbit from I think it's Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes' podcast. They were talking about it, like what went wrong with the Clippers, the Lob City Clippers.
Oh, sure.
And they were Glenn Big Baby Davis said that he was trying to build Boston in LA, and it's like
Oh,
these guys weren't Boston.
right.
I think Doc Rivers is only as good as the players that he had. Like, you get given, I mean, the Timberwolves were like, yep, KG, get out of here.
Yeah.
an all-world basketball player. You give it an
Yeah.
all-world basketball player, all NBA.
And tell him to get lost.
Tell him to get lost. And it's like we see that so often. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Like,
Two
but
2 years later, he's a champion.
it's 2 years later he's a champion. And the year before that, he was almost a champion. You know,
Right.
you add Ray Allen and Paul Pierce was, again, Celtics. Paul Pierce can kick rocks, but was a fantastic player in his stint.
Oh, without question.
He was clutch, just always, hitting that elbow jumper that, to win games. But then having Rondo, you had your Rondo with CP3 and you had guys that, like that, but it's like, you're like, holy crap. Like when Rivers has too much control, I think that's where he struggles. And I think that's what teams have given him. And then he goes from LA to Philly, and Philly's got Daryl Morey, but Daryl Morey seems like he's given Doc a lot of freedom. And it's like, you just saw what happened in LA. It didn't work. Yeah. We're trying to build it with Joel. Joel isn't quite as shifty as KG, but he's close, but he's still to the dominant ability of KG. Joel should probably win an MVP at some point, but it's like they're never at that top team. So like a lot of times the top player on the top team gets rewarded there.
Right. Yep.
But like, and then you got Harden too. And it's like, okay, Harden's your Rondo, Chris Paul, but like, we can't forget he can score. Like,
yeah, right.
I just think he forgets that he can score too. And it's like, I don't know. I'm not sure. It's a crapshoot. One of those things where you gotta take a chance to listen to it. I'll try to find a link for you and send it. It was a TikTok video, and I'm like, one of those things where I like listening to those little 3-minute clip ones and talk about it. And I'm like, that is true. Like,
it makes sense. It makes sense when you look back at it.
Well, who's kind of set the world on fire for podcasts is JJ Redick. I mean, JJ Redick is on ESPN, and I mean, he's calling games now, and he's been fun. Like I love. He just had Bobby on the other day, so I have to find some time to listen to that one. But he talks about like Bobby and the Bucks, and so I listened to the one with Drew Holiday like last summer or after the Bucks won the title, and it was just awesome.
Yeah, awesome. And a guy that's not afraid to kind of go after people. Which makes for incredible content.
Right. What he did to Kendrick Perkins the other day was just awesome. Did you see that?
I did.
Yeah, I was like, oh man.
And that's not a conversation that we're going to have on this podcast, but I agree with you on JJ Redick. It's been a lot of fun to listen to him and to see the way he's kind of transitioned his career, because he was a fantastic basketball player. So it's not a shock that he's been a fantastic media person. Yeah. If you get a chance to listen to him, definitely take it.
Definitely. I agree.
So, all right, Beaker, I appreciate you being with me, man. We're gonna call it quits for tonight. Be on the lookout for March Madness content. We're gonna be coming back with some more March Madness stuff. We're gonna break down the bracket, and we're gonna dive in and see if there's some matchups we like. But a lot of the good stuff to come with the rest of the NBA season. We'll have you back on, and we'll talk some more hoops in the near future. Beaker, appreciate you being with me, man. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody who's listening. And if you can, before you close out, throw a like on this video, leave a comment, subscribe so you get notified when new episodes are made available. And we will talk to you guys soon. Thank you.